Welcome to episode 10 of Paranormal Unwrapped with Krista Raisa and Jack Roth. Krista is a channel for the Orion Council, teacher, and artist. Jack is an investigative journalist, author, and award-winning filmmaker. In this segment, we are interviewing Viviane Chauvet, Arcturian hybrid, ambassador, spiritual teacher, speaker, and conscious channel. You can find her work on infinitehealingfromthestars.com. Welcome, Viviane. Nice to see you again, Jack. Let's get started.
Thank you.
Hey, Viviane. Great. We're really excited to have you today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, both of you, for having me and bringing the team. You know, when you bring me, you bring the team with too. So
yeah, this should be.
Here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. You know, obviously we've met you, we know you, and from various capacities. Krista and yourself are similar in a lot of ways, and I'm looking forward to you two going back and forth a little bit on that, because I find that absolutely fascinating with what the both of you can do, have the ability to do. And we met in kind of an interesting circumstances as well, Viviane. From the it was actually for the film for this documentary that we were doing on hybridization, and so we kind of talked about that. And you are going to be in the third film, which is we're currently editing. It's an extraordinary film. We don't have the exact title yet, but you will be in that. We are actually, both of you are in that, which is going to be cool. And you're both part of the same paradigm we're going to be looking at. So that's going to be really fun once that's cut together. I think it's going to be great. So, well, you know, I was thinking, you know, let's start today. We have you for a little while. We're no rush. We're not really any time constraint. So, you know, when people say the words hybrid, or Arcturian hybrid, or Pleiadian hybrid, or Orion channeler, things to that nature, I think a lot of people, they just don't know really what that is. So, but I figured maybe today, Chris and I thought a good way to start this conversation would be with your journey from the time you were born and you were a child. What was that like? And when did you kind of realize, there's something different about me? There's something going on here that's a little different. Walk us through that a little bit.
Absolutely, Jack. And, you know, wonderful to be here with you and Krista. Of course, we're very much in galactic star family energies. And with you being the brave one who said, I'm going to be the warrior and the writer to follow all of this. So it's a joy to be here and being among so much family, both on the earthly plane and the star/galactic plane. So being just, like you say, being a hybrid, what does it mean? And you know that it's a label that we have heard so much about, you know, the human race itself, a race of hybrid, to the fact that there's been so many DNA manipulation through different star civilization, including the Pleiadians, who have done also some intriguing part of inserting their own DNA to the DNA of early human, a long time ago on the Earth history. But in my case, being an Arcturian hybrid, so you have to understand being an Arcturian hybrid has a lot of challenges. So early on in my childhood, I was as little as 4 or 5 years old when consciously I understood that there was something very, very peculiar with me, very different. Not only in the way I perceived the world through the dialogue, I was already in what I call a blended conscious dialogues with, you know, many voices at the time. You know, if you think about a 4 or 5 year old child, you know, my dialogue, I can hear that it was my voice and the voices of a collective that was actually answering me, and also helping me to understand what seems not too logic to me in terms of behavior, in terms of observing what was unfolding, in terms of what was said, the energy behind it, the ripple effect, and all of it. Think of it as I had a screen all the time pulled down to me, in front of me, and I was getting information to understand and relate to my environment. But that was an aspect of, in terms of consciousness. The other aspect, as I talked many times before, is my, my physical form, my biology. So on the physiology level is you have to think about I'm 4 or 5 and I listen to adults and have medical gown with instrument around their neck and they have certain authority and they talked about me as an abnormal phenomenon. You know, they have a hard time understanding how I came about this way. So what they do, they look through the genealogy line to my mother and father on the human level to try to identify is there a gene that was passed down? Is it because it was a birth defect or something? But you know, there's no doctor for hybrid. We know that, and even doctor for soul star seeds. You know, that's another element. But to be able to comprehend what was said about me, how I was studied, how I was physically manipulated. And it was done in a way that has really clear intention. In their minds, they wanted to help me. They wanted me to fix me. They wanted to make sure that I was, you know, able to grow up and say what was wrong at the time. So whether it's the way I was developing, the way I was behaving, the way my body was even responding, even from a skeleton muscular, you know, structure level and so forth. So growing up in collective consciousness, if you look back in the 80s, you know, the collective consciousness overall was in a very different state. And I was put in a country where the type of UFO abnormal phenomenon was a little more paced and was not the main focal point. I grew up in Canada, so they were not very focused upon this. They were more focused upon, we have a case in front of us, a child that is evolving in a very different way that we cannot identify, so to speak, with medical terms or medical research. And I remember, I mean, doctors showing me like big medical book and says, you don't fit in any of it. You know, we have no explanation. So what we did, we come up with a label, a Latin word, if you would, a very long Latin word and a label to explain. So for them, it was a 3D attempt to categorize me in a way. So when from there, what they did with any labels, they go in and they explore that label. And so there was testing, there was, you know, there was other form of, you know, scheduling and then looking at me. And so I spent the first half of my growing up years between school, house, and hospital in medical facility to identify through these medical findings. We have to look back with compassion and love and forgiveness. I absolutely can tell everyone that I am at peace with these people. I am at peace with especially one doctor in particular. He was an English doctor back in Canada, and he was very, very interested in me. But you can tell that, you know, from a medical research and a medical point of knowledge, he was helping him to advance his own knowledge in the medical field. But I can tell he was a genuine, you know, wanting to help me, a desire to help me. And so the correlation between having this group consciousness talking with me, explaining the situation and understanding why you're going through all these testing of these, you know, appointments and meeting on the 3D, it's also helped the collective to study the human behavior. It helped the collective to gather very important data in terms of where the collective was evolving at the time and how much they were able to push the envelope. And that's a whole, you know, a whole different chapter right there into the collective evolution. But growing up, you know, just things relating to other kids, you know, in the school that seems so illogical, you know, sit there and they teach you things based on books that are outdated. And like I knew that their history, just the history factor, my team going, just go through the process. You're part here to learn in a 3D form. Pay no attention to this, just go through and then disregard and after that. And I did. You know, don't ask me about history and books the way I've learned it because it's completely disregarded. I more remember aspect of the history according to the Earth Akashic records, not to the books in school. But looking at the behavior between one another, human beings, the synergy, the distortion they were creating to their words, to their actions, to their emotional field, and understanding how they would not relate to each other. I'm thinking, why not build a collective consciousness where we can help one another and integrate those who feel outcast, different, they feel not loved because they go through different, stages in life, and bring them together instead of dividing and then, more creating chaos within each other. I felt like so illogical. I know I sound like Spock, but it's true.
That's why we love you. Because you're just being yourself, and you're just so perfect the way you are. And there's so many things I would like to comment on this, but I just want everyone to know, everyone to visit Viviane's website, and please, she's busy working. We're so blessed that she would have the time for us today, as I met her at a UFO Congress and got a reading, and I just found myself making a gift basket for her, like, thank you so much for being here. And I hadn't told anybody. I mean, my YouTube viewers saw I made this video saying I'm a galactic fairy, and I was having a really hard time. And Viviane said, I know you're a fairy, but you have to be human now. And when she said that, the mana raised up my spinal column, and that creates a sort of squirt of spinal column juice. And she was talking to people who don't know, when she says movie screen, that's when your psychic, your third eye is seeing. It's like a projection over your third eye overlay, and so that created a heart chakra release for me, because when you start crying, your heart chakra opens more, and it's like she could see you on a deeper level. So people who do not understand what is the starseed is, we are made up of many bodies, and so our true form that we use to go into other worlds is what she's seeing. And so for some of you guys, you can see me as an amphibian type of humanoid. And a lot of Arcturians, they look blue with really big eyes. They're pretty much the most advanced in our local Milky Way galaxy. So we don't understand this because we think that we're just this physical vessel here. And
yeah, it's hard. It's hard for 3D people, and I'm perfect example. I love listening to you guys, but I'm trying desperately. Like, I'm absorbing all this, and I'm like, yeah. And I have a million questions. It's like, because I guess I'd have the question for both of you would be, how do you know? Oh, it's Arcturian. Oh, it's Orion. Now is it because you're getting the information, you're getting those messages, and okay, this is who you're connecting with. This is who you are. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Yeah, that I can tell you in the presence of the consciousness of Orion, or the High Council, the presence of an Arcturian, for example, a collective Arcturian, there's no mistake. There's, the way they present themselves, the way there's a very vibrational, unique signature to them. It's a consciousness, the way to connect. I mean, yesterday we had the Ponti playing with my crystal at home, and I can tell there was no mistake that it was them, not Grace, not the Arcturian, because the way they even moved to space and time, they let you know that when you are open, like you mentioned, Krista, and thank you so much, dear, for such a beautiful testimonial. I'm really, really touched. Very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, exactly. See, I'm doing the human, you're doing the galactic. But you know what? When you're in the presence of a group consciousness, you know there's a distinction of the way to present themselves. Of course, being Arcturian and no father, but the team is here. It's a no-brainer. But when I'm in the presence, when I'm in channel, and I do star mapping, and then the ancestry of someone comes, and different collective comes, there's a distinction about them that it's palpable. It's like telling you, if you have different group of your family calling you Jack, you will know the distinction by the third cousin to your mother's side versus the one your father. There's a distinction in terms of the way they express, the way they present themselves, their intention, their vibrational signature. I mean, you can add to it, Krista, but and the more you open yourself, right?
And there are ways they want to, the loving star family want to gently connect to us to not upset our lives. And one way is to get a star map. Some people will see a star actually blinking through the star map. That happened with my partner, who's Arcturian, and he actually saw blue beings in his shower, and his girlfriend at the time saw him. And she freaked out. She's like, "There are these, your star family's here," and she started freaking out. So channelers, psychics, a lot of time, if you're a star seed, psychics will say, "Well, normally I don't channel galactic stuff, but I feel that there's extraterrestrials around." So yeah, it is a kind of X-Files that starts to happen. And the more you let it in, the more it increases.
Well, Viviane, I know one time you explained this to me, and it helped make sense of your father is Arcturian. Can you explain that? Can you explain the in a 3D terms of your mother, your father, and then your father? If that makes sense. So you have your Earth mother, father, and then you have your Arcturian father, who's really, so the DNA part. Can you just explain that?
Yes, of course. So I got 3 parents. My mother is human, and that was very key, essential for me to have to anchor into the human consciousness. I have my dad, which is my human dad, the one who raised me and agreed to be part of it, is a very intricate part of the process. And I have father. Father is my Arcturian biological father. So all 3 of them had a very deep soul connections and agreements. So they were chosen, they were selected by the council. It was a long time coming. I was part of the selection, so to speak, when I was still in my Arcturian form, before I even left Arcturus. So there was a lot of meeting, conscious connection. So my mom, of course, it was important for me to blend with the human gene. I could, obviously, no full-blown 100% Arcturian to evolve and live on the planet Earth and this with the gravitational pull of the planet and the 3D dimension. Forget it. We can't be here in physical form, and lasted more than a very, very short time. So I wouldn't be able to evolve in a full lifetime. So the blend of the human part was essential. At the same time, Jack, if I said to you and anyone who's listening, we're going to prepare you on a mission of great importance to assist a civilization in the midst of reascensions, as well as a planetary system in the midst of reascension. We're going to send you on planets AZ, and they are this way, they're evolving in a certain way. What you will do is that you would prepare and make sure you have the right equipment, so to speak, to go. If I send you on an expedition right in the Amazon forest, you're not going to go there with slackers, short t-shirts. You're going to go there with the gear up that is allowing you to explore what you're going to go to do. So you blend with your environment, you understand what is at stake, you have to have the necessary equipment, right? It makes sense. So it's something very similar. So we chose to make sure that our DNA was blended with the human DNA. So I would be looking more like humans. And I've said it many times because I know you would probably adjust to it, Jack, and Krista, you would go, "Oh, that's wonderful." If I look 12 feet tall, very lanky, my 3 fingers and my big eyes, no hair, very alien looking, but I'm full of love, would you have an interview with me today? No, I don't think so. Or people like, I have a website, I do session, come see me.
Yeah.
It defies the purpose. I know a father says, I'm applying myself to smile more and incorporate my human part of myself. So thank you. He reminds me.
I just want to say that to the people watching is I'm so grateful you're here, Vivian, because the whole process of a huge Palladian teaching is they're very similar to humans in many ways. A lot of the Palladians have been helping, but they want us to learn what's called integration. And Vivian is an example of someone who has integrated. She's come in experiencer. She has a long time ago integrated her cosmic self. And a lot of us, especially the psychic mediums in the room, is how you become a teenager and you turn off your abilities, or then they just start coming back. Is some of us here have had that for a long time. Some of us woke up a little later. Some of us are still waking up. And we have in our physical earth vessel we have it's called a worship gene. We have Anunnaki programming that is resisting the cosmic energy, which is why we need the help and must connect to our star families. So when you were in your teens, did you experience any sort of what was your experience like on the planet here with other humans and in school and that sort of thing?
It was a very interesting times. Again, if you look back 20 years ago, collective was in a very different space. So being in high school, and growing as a teenager, and what I was doing is I was growing deeper into the integrated part of blending with my group consciousness more in terms on my my ET side with my Arcturian family in the background, so to speak. But the thing is that my physical body was evolving very slowly. So I had a little bit of discrepancy in terms of what I could do. So after times I was the one left behind, like I couldn't do, physical, exercises and things like that. So I have to be, Vivian is the exception, I have to be put on the side. I have to be careful not to receive too much physical contact. My body was very frail. My bone could break easily. I could just stretch a little bit too hard, and I did break one of my finger by stretching too hard one time. And I would come back home and say, I broke another finger, or I got bumped today. We have to go check it out, make sure there's no broken bone or anything displaced. So it was very, very challenging. So I grew up more in a protected bubble where I would be extremely mindful of how I'm going to be exposing myself. And so, I was growing fast in consciousness, but my human self and my physical body was not following the pace of, my consciousness expanding. So there was a lot of discrepancy. So I spent a lot of time out of body, and I would be in the body just as necessary as possible. And being the light, on this planet, there's a sense of the duality when you talk about, the gene of worshiping. We also have the reptilian brain. For me, it's not as active because of my Arcturian part of myself, but I could see the programming also went to the reptilian brain, where that needs to be healed, and also understanding to heal the past wounds and the lineage that came through it through manipulation, oppression, and keeping the human race more into the primal instinct as opposed to their more cosmic divine self. And so teenagehoods were very challenging for me. And I was still having those intensive medical exams, medical appointments. And I reached a point in me when I rebel, I reached a crossroad when I said, time out. I'm moving out of that time construct. I am extracting myself from the three-dimensional approach when I thought was absolutely obsolete, and I knew that they were going nowhere. So I told my mother I chose to refuse to partake to that paradigm anymore, and I asked you to respect my choice, and we stop here. And she said, fine. So we completely stopped for many, many years. I will no longer see any doctors. I will no longer do any of it and as an attempt to identify more to the changes that was growing, to my body catching up on a very, very slow pace. So I did not fully develop till I was maybe in my early 20s. So if you think about you're 15 years old and you've been told that you look weird, your face is bizarre, my body looked like maybe like the one of 11 or 10 years old. I was very underdeveloped in terms of catching up. And also, but that part of me, my true essence, was very involved. So it was difficult to integrate, and I had a very challenging time. But you know what you say, what you hear to study, understand. And, I was more in a sense of observation. I would observe others a lot. And when there was aspect, even on the emotional field, when I was feeling emotion very deeply, then my collective would come and explain, says, okay, here's the context. You are within an energy field where the humans are a very frail development of their journey. There's a system called hormones. You go like, really? Okay, that comes with the human journey. And then everything else that comes with connecting with one another, but also the switch. You could have a friend. I could have a friend for a moment, and the next day the friend was gone because it was too bizarre to be in my presence, or it couldn't understand and comprehend the energy field that I was emanating. And of course, think of a teenager, 15 years old, you're in high school, right? And you're in a classroom, but around you there's a huge energy field of light beings because they are in the light bodies. And people don't understand why they don't feel comfortable around me. I'm like, well, that's because we take up a little bit of space, and you're interacting, you are in the presence of a vibration, of a consciousness that they were simply not ready for. And that was overall for the collective on the planet. If you look at the 80s to the 90s, there was a big, big rebellion in terms of the collective, where it went deep in terms of redefining what was their own identity and how they could integrate aspects of themselves. So left alone being next to you. So, you're sitting in a classroom to someone who already feels, look different, speak different, act different. And there's something about the energy around, which is normal because there's all this presence around me. As I walk, I come as a team. Right. So when we walk in a room, you feel the presence coming through first, and then you see us. So
that's got to be challenging. Incredibly challenging, and for anyone, but growing up, and especially, how teenage years are, it's hard for anyone in junior high or high school to kind of deal with it, right? No matter what. And so here you are in this situation where there's being who you are. That must have been absolutely brutal. And kids, and people are closed-minded in general. Human beings aren't known for their open-mindedness to these things. So for you to be in that situation, real quick, today we're talking to Viviane Chauvet. We're really excited about it. Viviane is an Arcturian hybrid, conscious channel, spiritual teacher, and ambassador. And we are talking about all these things today. What I wanted to ask you is, so you did have that epiphany of, I'm done with this. I'm going to do what I need to do. So there was an understanding that this is my purpose and I'm going to embrace it. Was that like that moment?
Yes, it was that moment. And part of embracing what I'm here to do, and also embracing who I am, even though I knew that I was evolving into a collective that was not ready for me just yet. At the same time, the immense work we've done behind the scene have grown and allow people to blossom in ways that they may not consciously, remember or recognize. So I knew at that point, I said, I choose to embrace who I am. I embrace and I am different according to the human concept, or what is the standard accepted by the collective or society. And at the same time, what we do is that we did a lot of back work. So all the students, everyone we touched, everyone we encountered, we knew that we were also there to create very profound paradigm shift in themselves as an individual, as a collective, in a society, and on the planetary level. One thing that I've always been very connected to is nature, the elementals, the higher kingdoms, what we call the invisible kingdoms, whether it's the fairies, the elementals, the gnomes would come see me. spirit of nature, trees talking to the collective, and also those who are evolving in terms of different spheres of reality. So I understood that we're also part of a very beautiful ecosystem that we are influencing one another. So I just knew that I was ahead of the curve at the time, and patience was very applied because I knew that as I was evolving, so will the collective and the individuals. And if you look today, the polarized energy is reversed as opposed to, being repulsed and more pulled away from my energy. People are more attracted to it because there's deeper sense of awakening right here, right in their higher heart center and the essence, where, like you mentioned, Krista, earlier, they too, people are in a state of integration and different level of collective consciousness where they're moving through their own evolutionary path. So the challenge was immense, yes. But there's a quote from a movie, and I'm sure everyone knows this movie. It's the remake, not the original, but the one with Keanu Reeves, The Day the Earth Stood Still. So in that version with Keanu Reeves, when the entity take on the body and they have to adapt and merge into a human body, eventually that being played by Keanu Reeves meet a beautiful Asian man in a McDonald's. He sat down there, and he was another contactee, he was another part of the same collective that the being came from. And it was informed that the mission was done and he had to leave. And then I don't remember quote for quote, but the essence of what I like about this is the man responds to him and says, a human life is very difficult, but now it's coming to a completion. I am happy I have lived it. Because it knew that the reward and what it learned, what is being learned from a human life, to rejection, to hardship, through observing, to be there as a silent giant, the reward was infinitely bigger than the challenge themselves. And that quote alone, that exchange from that movie, that scene, in a very simple setting, a McDonald's or having a tea, that profoundness of that exchange for me, that give me the boost, give me the motivation, give me the, the energy to say, okay, you know what, let's continue because there's much, much bigger here than my own considerations. So
do you have any tips for some of our viewers who maybe they live in places or they're just going through such a hard time that to maintain their frequency and vibration it's like lifting weights, which I'm sure is the case just existing on this planet. But do you have any sort of practice or maybe a system, an intuitive way, or a personal counsel, or a sort of oracle card deck, or somehow where you go, or do you use the third eye to get, is it your dreams, or is it maybe it's all of these things? How do you get your guidance for your own as a leader? Do you have a way to go about making your decisions for what to do next?
Beautiful question. However, there's two different layers to your question. So if you allow us, with your permission, let's go back to the first layer, which was very profound in terms of what advice, what tools can we give everyone who are going through challenges and having a hard time to adapt and feel grounded and anchored to themselves. To that, I would say, allow yourself to connect back to the heart of Gaia, the earth, not just as a planet, but as an entity. So one of the things that I always give people as a tool that I do myself, and I can tell you, both of you and all of you on the planet, that it works for me very well. What I do is that I anchor myself back into my higher heart, to my thymus chakra. This is your higher heart. This is the center where your true self-mastery resides. The sum of all your soul experiences are. The true wisdom and the knowledge is there. So I go back into my thymus chakra, to my higher heart. There's a gateway there. There's a doorway. And I connect through it and allow myself, my essence, to breathe, connect, release the excess of energy that I may have absorbed, burden, emotional burden, mental, lower mental burden, also to thought forms. I allow myself to cleanse and regain and connect with the true essence of my inner flame to my higher heart. And through my inner flame to that gateway, I travel and I leave my body very gently where I see myself in space and I see the blue pearl. What we call the blue pearl is the nickname we gave to the earth. Looking at planet Earth or Gaia to space in the infinity of the cosmos and you feel her presence, you will feel that she is emitting transmission to her heart center, which in turns are received by other planetary body around and beyond, and then they talk back and forth. But the essence is let her heart transmission goes back into your inner flame, to your heart center, to your thymus chakra, and let her show you, let her remind you of why you've come to the planet, why you have chosen to incarnate in these times. Let us show you also the sum of all the life forms evolving on the planet and to see that as the bigger picture, the much, much, much bigger divine picture of your existence, your presence as a celebration. And so by then you are in that connections, then that communication will take through and allow your being to regenerate and allowing yourself to release any residual patterns that belong to the earth plane in the 3D plane and allowing any earthly attachment just to fall off so you can rise stronger in terms in your essence, in who you are, your magnificence. And when you go back to your in your body and you anchor, and you need to ground yourself into your body, into the energy of the earth, in this reality, in the now. Take a deep breath, go, okay, now I remember, I'm ready for the next steps. And I can tell you, it's going to help you move forward a lot faster and also releasing any anchor or cord that what we call earthly attachments. That's just designed to hold you up and create illusions. And so it's extremely powerful. I invite all of you to experience it for yourself and see how it does for you and what comes for you at that point. It's beyond.
That's awesome.
Jack, how are you feeling, Jack? Because you said you might spontaneously combust.
I'm good. I'm doing pretty good now. No, I'm good. I'm doing a lot better than I thought I was going to be doing. No, it's just the energy. You know, I've had experience being around both of you, not often at the same time. I think in maybe Phoenix was the only time that ever happened. But no, there's something to be said for someone in my position who I am not that. I might be on a certain level, but certainly the level that you guys are dealing with from the standpoint of where you're existing in that that level of consciousness where you're both. It's like one of the things that amazes me is the whole idea of channeling, right? So Viviane, you channel your Arcturian family, you're getting messages from them, you're able to channel. And Krista, you're doing the same with the Orion Council. So you have these two separate ET races, more advanced than obviously we are, on a higher vibrational plane, obviously, than human beings. We're obviously higher than the 3D level. I guess the question I have is, and I think it's important for people like me to understand this, who are more just trying to figure this out. What is the process of channeling? What does it feel like? When does it come and go? You know, and you both probably can answer that, but I've always been fascinated with the idea of being able to do that.
Well, it's inherent to everybody. Everybody can channel. We are, all of us. It's just simply happening that Krista and I are probably more attuned to it because, you know, who we represent and who we have accepted to be. So I don't know what if you want to add or share anything, Krista, and then our team will come through and bring additional detail around.
Yeah, I mean, I will talk about this anytime, guys, on my YouTube channel, so I really want to talk about Viviane today, but I will be coming out with a video. Actually, the next video I'm uploading is about the afterlife, and so when you can understand the dimensions and you're studying this with your brain and you're reading books, it attracts more of that to you. It's kind of like when you're going on your karmic path correctly, you get access. So if we're just running around just eating McDonald's and being selfish and greedy and mean, you're not going to get access. And when you accept that there is a very sophisticated system in place here, it makes you really humble. So that's one tip I could give as far as that. But regarding the afterlife, I mentioned this because I just learned that in between incarnations, we can gather up a lot of energy in the astral plane. So we're a physical body, we are astral body, and then we are what some call the Buddha body, but we are many, many bodies. And in the reincarnational cycle, the astral body and the physical body come back. So the infinite self, the higher self, is always there, stays the same. But if you're an advanced being, an adept, you can develop skills, and channeling is just one of the siddhis or the gifts. There are many magical powers that you can have. And so I've had dreams of studying on another planet with they have cone-headed gray beings with big eyes. That's where I learned how to channel. So I feel that in between incarnation on this planet, I've gone to other planets to learn these sorts of skills. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but there's many components to just one gift, but it's certainly a gift.
Yeah, I agree. It's a gift, but it's also a natural ability that is inherent to any human beings. It's just like you said, it's removing the layers. If the more you live in the integrity of your heart center, then even your light body, you are open, you're becoming a more clearer conduit of light. And even in physical form, you're maintaining this energy, this opening. It's a way to see how it feels to be a channel. I can tell you that in my case, we are what's called a blended channel. So my team, or the group consciousness of my team, and I are the same collective. And I recognize them as an aspect of me, as they recognize me as an aspect of them. There's no separation. And it's also opening your front lobe, and help you to open, even expanding to your pineal gland. It helps you to return you to natural ability. If you look at even back in Atlantis, and especially the very first project, the first phase of Atlantis, or even Lemuria, that was natural, as well as telepathy was natural. The exchange of thought forms as a form of language, a lot more effective than the verbal. Let me tell you that. I can tell you, it conveys everything, your essence, your thought, your intention. Everything is conveyed and received with clarity, without any filters, without having to go through the lower mind filters of, oh, you said this word for me, I was hurt when I was 5 years old. This word has lots of emotional connotation, and I hear you say that word in a phrase that was meant to uplift you. But what I just did is create more a peak on that wound, because that word has connotation and emotional charge to it. And so that's an example of, the verbal communication with filters, depending on the wording you choose. As opposed to being a channel, think of it as it's an exchange of essence through you, an entity, a being, a group consciousness, another human being.
Right.
It's natural. And so going through the process of how you live your life, the integrity of your heart. Are you listening to who you are? Which master are you listening to, your higher mind or the lower mind that navigates through the primal energies and more survival mode, healing ourselves from programming of the past? One of the things that we are very passionate about on this planet is to release and relieve that paradigm, those illusions paradigm of programming and making people believe that they're small as a piece of grain, and some on the channel they're like extraordinary, but in reality it's just as extraordinary. It's just you don't know it, you're not conscious of it.
Right.
And so, I love what Krista said, because with what we bring, you see the complementary, we blend into each other and we bring different perspectives. So can you imagine, just for the pleasure of imagining, having the Arcturians, part of the High Council, the Orion, and we all there in meetings. We have a meeting all together, and the way we communicate, the way we talk about concept and the next phase of the evolution on the planet and beyond, it's so complementary, because the way we think, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we share and convey, and then, from your side, Krista comes, and you can see how the energy is blending in. It's wonderful. I can feel like I'm almost floating on my chair.
Yeah, totally.
I do. I feel like it's so
Yeah,
right.
I feel left out here.
You know what? When the starseeds hang out, we're just like this whole time, like, because we're having a multi-dimensional experience. Like,
you know what? I find it interesting though that you said what you said about in ancient civilizations, we're actually more connected psychically. Were right, and then over time we've lost that ability. We used to be more psychic. We used to be more able to connect on those levels, certainly telepathically, even right. As opposed to we talk now with our mouths. But I find that really fascinating. But here's the thing, and this is again, I'm gonna get real literal here, okay? and tell me if I'm off, how much I'm off on this. Okay, Viviane, so you're in your bed at night reading a book, just going about your day. You're doing your thing. You're reading a book, but whatever book it is. Is it the kind of thing that all of a sudden you hear a voice say, "Hey, Viviane, up here, we're up here. How you doing?" And then you realize that the Arcturians are now here. It's what I'm saying. Like, how does it? Is it this thing? Is it this kind of thing? Is it sometimes you feel like, oh, it's coming? Do they give you a warning? Do they ever scare you by just all of a sudden being startled? I mean, or because you have to go about your day, right? You're going about your daily routine because you are a human being on this 3D, at least in this 3D form right now. So how does, I always wondered, is there something like, oh, it's coming. They're coming. Like, how does that work?
I know you're coming from this, Jack, and I have the joy to know you and be part of your circle of friendship. So I can feel what you're saying. So I know what you mean. It's deeper than that on our hand. You have to think about, yes, I'm partially human. You are correct. And that's the thing. I need to look like it, even though, not completely asymmetrical, but they did a good job into blending me in more human form. At the same time, I am who I am, even though, the disguise or the human form with the hair and the lipstick and the talk and the walk, it's more than that. You have to think that I was genetically conceived from a very advanced civilizations, and human beings are also advanced. That's just been repressed for so long, and this is why this needs to stop now. This is the passion in us talking. So bear with us for a moment. Yeah, now, for all life form, this is it. Okay, I said out loud, it makes me feel good. Let's go back. I'm really much a blend. And so physically, even under the hood, body-wise, the way I function, everything is according to that very much hybrid blend of two very powerful civilizations. And so for me, the way it talks, I can be reading a book. Right now, they're talking to me. Right now, they're with me. But the way it works for me, because physically I was designed to maintain and hold the frequency of my star people in physical form without having to burn my nervous system or overload my, my brain or overload my, lymphatic system and all of it. I am designed to be in a 24/7 live stream, if you want, connection with them. There's no turn on and off. It's continually. So think of it, a beautiful show you have right now that's on 24/7. So how they do it is when we do consultation for people, when we do group work, when we do interviews, when I read a book and go about my day, they're in a constant way of talking. So think of it as having a group of friends behind you who are just follows you around, and sometimes they're busy connecting and doing other things, and then when you need them, team, yes, we're here.
Yeah,
And when I don't, exactly,
that's
right?
exactly what it feels like. It's always there, and we can tap into the stream of knowledge and the guidance whenever we want to.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of really balancing ourselves. To me, it's like you're on a surfboard of consciousness, and when you go, the wave gets a little higher, so you need to practice a little bit.
Okay.
That's how
I agree with you, Krista, and the team, like you mentioned, to bridge that human part, and I know you were going for, Jack, is that when they feel on the human level, I need more space. They just feel like they're there, but they will give me the space that I need. And then when I feel like sometimes I panic, oh my God, you left, you're not there. And they come, breathe, we're still here. And they let me know, they ground me to say, we're always present, but we adjust, and there's no but, and we are readjusting to what you need, going to what I'm going through in my day. So it's a constant level of, and how they come to me. I mean, they're opening portal all the time. I see those, beautiful royal blue spark, and they open portal. And I know, Krista, you mentioned about blue being blue. When I see Father, when I go on the ship and I connect and I regenerate and I go back to be with them, they're not blue on the ship. They're like almost translucent. They have a light body that they utilize to travel through that blue light frequency that makes them look blue. But technically, when we're on the ship, I didn't see any Arcturian who are blue by skin tone. They're more like very, very pale, almost like translucent, beautiful. And then I get the collagen on my skin based on them a lot. Because my skin is extremely thin.
Right.
Very much so. So that energy is always there. So it's part of who we are. It's part of the agreement, right? I'm sure, like you did, Krista, you probably have an agreement with those you represent of who you are and what you've come to do. And yes, it's available to you as well, Jack, and it's available to everyone. People ask me, how do you connect the best with Arcturians? And I would say the best way to connect with them is to be really well centered within your heart, and with opening your third eye, and that connections allow you to connect with them. So, and they will understand, they will know what is the best way to connect, whether it's to dream state, what's called the astral plane, whether it is through a whisper, a sensation that came out of nowhere, a presence, a feeling, or even direct dialogue. They could dialogue directly with you.
Right. So it's basically, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'd say I feel like they've transcended the physical to a certain extent, certainly, and that's interesting to me. I feel like a spiritual toddler today. I always feel like, hey, I'm on a good spiritual journey. I'm there, man. Don't mess with me. I'm a spiritual dude. And then I get you two on, and I'm like, oh my God, I had a lot of work to do. I can't even find my way out of this room. And you're
hilarious.
You're surfing with 8-dimensional beings. So there you go.
They're going to bring me back to the show. Is that what I mean?
It doesn't make our lives any easier.
No, I don't. And that's my next question. Real quickly, today, this is Paranormal Unwrapped with Jack Roth and Krista Raisa. And today, our guest is Viviane Chauvet. For those of you who are just tuning in, Viviane is an Arcturian hybrid, conscious channel, spiritual teacher, and ambassador. And we are having a lot of fun in this conversation, and I am learning a lot. I always learn a lot. So, with that, okay. So let's talk about the Arcturians for a second. For those who think about ETs. Okay, so these are, when I think of ETs, I think of, okay, these are, it's a race of beings from another planet. And I do understand, even though I'm not really, it's really hard for me to grasp the idea of dimensional, 3-dimensional, 5th-dimensional, 7th-dimensional, 9th-dimensional, whatever that might be. I mean, Krista and I did a brief little thing on vibrational frequency, and I know that ties into this. But describe the Arcturians. Who are they? Did they evolve the way we evolved? And is it just that they're an older civilization? They're more an advanced civilization. Therefore, they're at this point higher vibrational energy than we are. Is that who they are?
I would say yes to all of the above. It's very more complex than that. Yes, they are a very enlightened and advanced star civilizations who have reached a high level of ascension a long, long time ago. So think of them as your elders in history who have reached a certain level of enlightenment. And then you go to there and you say, Master, how did you get there? And they said, this is what we're here for. We're going to teach you, to show you. We are an example. We're holding a space for you to reach and go back to your celestial home, to go back to your celestial self. So yes, they are very evolved. And being part of Arcturian, Arcturians are very oftentimes depicted in different ways. I can tell you it can be a little bit challenging to really grasp their full essence, because Arcturian have reached a level of enlightenment that they understand also, protecting of life. They also understand, yes, I know, to different journey, to different, if we look at even before the first Atlantean project came about, we had a colony back on Mars when Mars was still a planet, green and fertile with ocean and very similar, almost like a planet sister to the Earth. And we were sharing an outpost on the planet on the North Pole, and on the South Pole, they had another civilization from a higher dimension reality who were there. And to different projects and to different state of evolution, through with the Council of Elders and different outposts that we had, Arcturians have learned a great deal to respect life, to respect also the evolutionary process of the civilizations, and also to be very mindful of any form of manipulations, including DNA, including intervention in ways that prevent a civilization to evolve and reach a point of enlightenment or reach a point of ascension. So we're very present in terms of master teachers, healers, guides who are there. Like, think of it as your elders, your masters have reached a level, and we're here to assist you, also to remember, to bring everyone back to their essence or remembrance, who you really are, and not the illusionary personality or persona, the layers have been put onto the human race and leading them to believe that they are in a certain way. For example, human beings were designed to be a very deeply peaceful race, not of war and discord and what we have witnessed throughout history. It's truly against the true human nature. It really is. And so, Arcturians are magnificent beings. Think of them even in ancient civilization like ancient Egypt, the school of learning to the high priests and the high priestesses, and the school of divination and ancient mystery were using a very old healing matrix based on the Arcturian and also blend with the Syrian. And that matrix, even today, throughout other parallel different universes to the multiverse, is still used in terms of a matrix of healing. So Arcturians are really master in healing deeply at the soul level and in the emotional body, which the human being has so much power that is centered right into your emotional field. And this is why the return, it may sound very simple what we're saying, at the same time to feel the weight of our words here. The power of returning to your heart and regaining the true understanding of who you are to your heart center then the planet can shift like this tomorrow morning. We can do it like this. Because if you look,
I'm sorry, what switched us in the first place? You made a great point before that we're not meant for war and we're supposed to be different. What happened?
What happened? Let's keep it on a light note, shall we? If you look at
it's a long story.
Was it the Anunnaki, the DNA thing?
Well, DNA and planets was look at the beautiful resources, human race turned into a race of slaves and servants to serve races who have evolved technologically, but not in the alignment and spiritual level. And it's very, very complex. So think of it as, let's give you an example that summarizes everything and keep the energy higher. And of course, Krista, please, by all means, you're welcome to add anything. Is think of it as a child, a baby, okay? Pure, connected. Its connectors are completely open. And you take that child and you raise that child in a mind aspect. And you train that child to believe that his whole purpose is to serve, to mine that mind, to work in the mind, to extract resources and bring those resources to, I don't know, a landlord or someone who is in control, or a king or a queen or whatever. And you convince that child that his whole existence is to reproduce, to work and serve. And so what happened is that it creates such a profound imprint to that child, even to the DNA, that that child will pass on gene that we talked briefly about just a moment ago, into thinking that this is the purpose of the race. And let me give you an example of something that recently happened to me. I have mentioned in other interviews that Arcturians, we have no hair whatsoever. So humans have hair. And I think it's fascinating. It's one of my favorite features on the human body. It's my hair. So what do I do with it? I go see a professional who knows what they're doing with it, right? So recently I went to a place to get my hair done. And I told a professional, what do you think would be the best for me? I'm not sure. So the person performed, and that person, throughout a very 3D haircut performance, was talking with me. And the person said to me, I understand now. And I said, what is it? The purpose of the human race is to make babies, is to reproduce. And so I took a deep breath and I said, oh, is that so?
Sorry.
And I'm like, I'm not here to reproduce. I don't have biological children. So what is my purpose then? I didn't say that to that person. I want to respect that person's state of what that person was moving through. A lot of emotional. I can feel the person emotional center very, very active. And so that illustrates, I'm going to stop there with that example that just recently happened. So imagining my team coming and I have my third eye opening the screen and we go to the archives and they're showing me a lot of information, all of it sitting on a chair in a hairdresser salon, having this going on. And so welcome to my world.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, just all of it just to get a haircut. And so that example illustrates in spades what we just shared about take a baby, let that baby grow with program, with conditioning, and then to generation going to pass on until they reach a point of awareness where other factors come through and then they break through, right? And we're sampling. It's a very simple explanation of this. But think about the human. We know what different civilizations come through, whether it's the reptilian, draconian, Anunnaki. The Pleiadians have played a part in a different level, but they have played a part in the DNA manipulation. And others who have other intentions to help, to assist, others who are intention to repress, to control, to manipulate, and so forth. So we're coming back to today. Now we're about to move through the energy field 2020. We know 2020, 2021 are two very major light corridors that we're moving into. And so we're moving into a different state on the planet as a civilization, as a collective. And so we're having this conversation right now. So you can see there's a lot, well, we have gained a lot of road, so to speak, between back then when the baby was raised in a mind thinking that it was simply his entire existence was to procreate and serve, versus as we're rising back to who we are. And I do say who we are collectively because we represent you as you represent an aspect of us a long time ago. And I think that illustrates very well,
Right.
in a very, very short, in a blink of an eye, an evolution.
It's interesting. And Krista, you had mentioned to me once that with the Orions, that there's interaction between Orions, Pleiadians, Arcturians, and that are there similar, I say agendas, but there's a purpose. They're all advanced, obviously more advanced than we are as humans. So what's the relationship there?
The Orion System. Okay, so we're in a Milky Way galaxy, which is looking like a spiral. And one of the arms is called the Orion arm. And so when you go out of the Milky Way galaxy, there are other systems. And a lot of the star beings interacting with Earth are coming from even outside of our Milky Way. If we can just grasp that in our minds, how large this universe is. And the connection they have between each other is, when you consider a distance between arms of a galaxy, to us it seems really huge. But
Right.
if you have beings who have developed interdimensional travel, astral projection, I mean, these are things we know about here. We're not even talking about the abilities they have that we haven't even begun to grasp in our consciousness. They must have a very seamless system or network. For instance, there's this movie, remember Avatar, that movie?
Mm-hmm.
And they would connect to this tree, and they would all meditate around the tree, and they would send their energy to it. Like, as Viviane was saying, we need to connect with Gaia. Or if you think of a cell phone tower, I don't like that example, but let's just use a tree. or mushrooms. These are networks, ancient networks that have been put in place for us to send messages to each other, for us to remember our way home. And there are solar gateways, there are paths of consciousness that have been taught to us through our belief systems, like the Tree of Life. And these are also interdimensional maps. I feel like I'm trying to channel in an answer. And so it's kind of like once you've been to that location in the galaxy, you know how to get there. So in Orion, we know from Stan Romanek that there in the belt, there is a portal to leave the universe. So I guess the question is, that's my question is, to make it easier to understand is where in the galaxy are you? Because once you know locations, you can do what is called triangulation. So to find a location on this planet, you do what is called triangulation, and you find a center point in that triangle to find a certain location. It's kind of how interdimensional travel works. So you need to know 6 points in the universe, in the 7th center point. This has to do with if you imagine the Merkaba, they say that's a vehicle, so it's a 6-pointed star. And I'm having a hard time explaining, but it's a mathematical sequence to go into another place. And Earth humans, I've heard from insiders, is that they're having some trouble just going into another dimension, that people are actually dying because they do not have the infinite wisdom to go there's a lot of selfish people on this earth who think they know everything, and they're not consulting the Galactic Federation. There's to go through a wormhole, you're not supposed to carry metals through certain portals. Excuse me. You're supposed to wear a jumpsuit, and that's it. That's why a lot of ETs wear jumpsuits. So when you have Earth humans going with weapons technology through a portal, this is supposedly why the Procyon don't do business with Earthlings, is because they're so violent. And so if you think about that as far as consciousness and what holds us to the Earth, these are the sorts of things that are like basic ABCs. So when you understand the ABCs, then you can have stuff like interdimensional communication. And these councils have meeting places. There's lots of councils. Mm-hmm. And so when you get through our solar gate, you access the greater cosmic web, which includes Sirius, Arcturus, Antares, Midway Station, Pleiades. And these are just well-known hubs in our universe. But there's far many more systems out there. So these are the more famous ones because they're like they're like a train station stop to go to other places. So Orion is a really common one. And maybe Vivian has more about the Arcturians. What was the question again?
Well, you definitely answered it. It was really, how do they interact, right? So there's the council, there's a galactic federation. So I asked Vivian, I guess, Arcturians, are they a part of with these other advanced races in any of these federations or councils or anything like that?
Yes, we do. We have representation in different councils, including the Andromedan Council that we are particularly close to. We're very much in resonance with them. We're definitely also partaking to the High Council of Orion and Sirian. And we do have a representative that speaks on our behalf for the Federation. So when I need to connect with the Federation, we call upon our point of contact there. And then that point of contact comes and bring me there because it's a little bit more complex. It's, just popping there. There's certain protocols that are in place. And as well as in connection with the spiritual hierarchy responsible for the Earth and overseeing the evolution of the Earth according to the divine plan. So there's definitely a lot of collaborations, and also from other group consciousness who are in really much higher dimensional frequency, who don't necessarily have really physical or a corporal form, but we also are the midpoint communication with other group consciousness in that sense. Different form of light beings and advanced ones that we work with, ancient ones that we work with. So there's definitely a beautiful network of collaboration, if you would. If you look at, the UN here on this earth, it brings forth the representation of delegates from different countries that speaks on the behalf and represent and have, lots of talks and, negotiation and all kind of terms of, being able to oversee also how everything evolves. And also there's also many ships posted in this Milky Way to prevent any more intervention from other civilizations who have other form of intentions, so to speak. There's a lot of filtering out in that sense. And in that sense, the human beings, everyone on the planet can do their part. There's one thing you can do is to be mindful on what kind of thoughts you're emanating, because every thought forms create a trail of energy, an energetic trail that in terms is perceived by other civilizations, and it coming from the earth. So, and that can create distortions or can create uplifting energy field. So your thought forms are extremely important. We hear about creating with your thoughts what you want in your life, what you desire, right? Well, it's something similar to your thought forms that you can also not only meant to connect, but also it can be meant to create distorted energy that the Arcturians and other advanced ones are constantly filtering out and also clearing out to prevent having the distortion to move through other civilizations on the planetary system. And we've seen that happening. Think of it as radio waves that are emitted constantly. And there's so many on the planet. So imagining how many radio waves are constantly being emitted on the planet from your thought form. So one of the things you can do that helps everyone to also evolve and keep your frequency in a higher level is, where do your thoughts dwell the most? Are you in a program of scarcity, lack, fear, and inferior energy, primal instinct? Or are you elevating yourself to, I choose as I remove, release lack, scarcity, doubts, and lower energy, and I bring in terms of certainty, groundedness, bringing also the connections so you can keep your thought form at a pure level to the energy form. We also have Stargate. We have an Earth Stargate that connects directly to our star system. We're also helping souls who depart from the Earth plane to move to that Stargate so they can continue on their evolutionary path as souls, and they can incarnate in different systems or different dimensions, or they can remain formless if they wish to continue in different, sphere of an octavy of existence. Right. So there's definitely different ways.
And
so
could I just answer an earlier question? I got the answer now. Well, you were asking how channeling works, and Viviane mentioned the pineal glands, which is depicted in religion as a pine cone. I have a symbol for that in my Galactic Symbols from the Ninth Dimension book, Gatekeeper Time Codes, and it looks like a diamond with lines coming out in each direction, surrounded by a greater circle. And now I know why it looks like a diamond, because we have little piezoelectric crystals within the pineal gland. And people who have this gland, physical gland, active and healthy, have often a sort of a light purple glow around their head. It's like whitish purple. So they're spiritually open to the next dimension. So you can actually close them. You can corrupt your system in glands as well. So meditating on this symbol can help some of you activate in that dimension, but also, not consuming too much any fluoride water, having a clean water. And I just use toothpaste without. But yeah, basically having a clean water is just very, very important.
So, okay, so this, we all have it though, right?
Yes.
Okay. And some people it's just more activated than in others.
Yeah, that and the pituitary gland.
So what is the ultimate purpose and goal of all this? Is it to do the Arcturians? I know there are rules as far as and the way these races interact with human beings on this planet. There are rules as far as conduct, and some don't obey those rules. The more malevolent, if you will, species don't care, and they're probably not even part of the Federation. But what is it? Is it to watch us, to help us in a non-obtrusive way to evolve? Is the plan to one day have Earth and human beings be part of the Galactic Federation, the part of this galactic brotherhood? Once we evolve to that point, is that the plan? Is the plan to get us to where we're supposed to be?
Well, it's all aspects of it. Now you talk about the galactic. Let's look at that aspect alone. You talk about, will the human being retake their rightful place within the Federation? There is a place for the human race, most definitely. It's an aspect of it. But ultimately, I know from an Arcturian perspective and also from our High Council of Elders, is we have answered multiple calls of assistance for a planet who has sunk so deep into density, and helping to, we come as guides, we come as teachers, we come as, coach and mentors to help humanity to regain their freedom and to return to your true self in terms of what you're capable to do, and being able to remove the oppressiveness and the influence of those who have claimed the earth as their own playground, so to speak, as well as so many life forms, including animals. If you look the animal kingdoms, so many souls from different, civilization have come and embody an animal form, like cats. They're amazing. The entire feline is one. Whales, dolphins. We think, oh, they're so beautiful in the ocean and they create that sound, which is amazing, and we study them. There are master sentient beings who constantly create a balance in the ecosystem, and their work is phenomenal for eons. So the assistance is being there palpable on the ground, what we call, we are the ground crew. You, Jack, Krista, everyone listening, everyone on the planet in physical form, you're the ground crew. Your cats are the ground crew, your dog, from the Syrian soul star seed and all of them. So ultimately, what is the goal? To look at the goal is the earth needs to take her rightful place in her ascended ways. She needs to, go back to her original divine cosmic blueprint, which she was always meant to be, and has the human beings who are designed to evolve and be as the civilizations. So I'm going to allow me to give you an example, and my team love to use imagery to illustrate what we want to convey, is if you buy a beautiful mansion, that is, you want to turn into a holistic center to help and assist people to evolve, to learn, to teach, and then your mansion and the land become infested, weeds and other type of infestation and all kind of intrusion. What you're going to do is that the foundation, the purity of the original plan for this mansion to be a holistic place, it's corrupted. And then if there's no attention, then over time, you may turn into something else. So it's something very similar, and that's the image they're giving me, is that we're coming back in terms of returning all of you to your celestial home, to resume and to be able in alignment with your original cosmic divine blueprint on the earth and as the civilizations, and also evolving as such. And there's an urgent need to be able to break through and see through any form of illusionist paradigm that has been pushed on the planet. And even through, we know, through the ring of Saturn, that's another way that they're pushing their agenda. The moon being such a hollow base that has been created and put in place with purpose, and even change the tides on the planet, and even to the sacred feminine cycle, there's been change even to the feminine, even in the physiology for women. There's been a lot of changes done because of that base put there. So there's an urgent place to revere yourself, revere life forms, revere life on the planet, and return and fully integrate it with who you are. And again, I'll use a quote from a movie that we all know, Return of the King, from the Lord of the Rings, when Master Eldon and the Master Elf returned the sword of Eldi to Aragorn. What does he tell him? He said, put the ranger aside and become who you were born to be. He was born to be the king of, Middle Earth, from the kingdom of men. So put that facade aside, that persona, what you identify yourself with, and put that aside and embrace who you were always born to be in terms of who you are created to be. And so we're coming to, there's a huge loop that we're coming to full circle. In that loop, it's also taking us again, the very first project, the very first phase of Atlantis, where after that there was a downfall in consciousness and all kind of, infiltration came through. We're coming to full circle. So there's many souls that where we were told that there are many, many souls on the planet who also finally are able to free themselves from the wounds and also what it did to them, for them at the soul level. So there's a lot of healing of the past wounds. We are restoring also timelines to that sense. So there's a profound return to who we are and who you keep identifying yourself with, even in the mundane. Even when you wash your face, brush your teeth, take care of yourself, preparing for going to work or whatever you do in life. You do it within the grace and the beauty of who you are as a divine being, having this human experience. And when you do this, when you identify with your true essence, whether you have an ET soul, whether you have an angelic soul, whether you are more in terms of what aspect you're integrating, even from, yes, I know, the earth angels, you know, whether you are a starseed, a hybrid, a masters have come back in incarnations, whatever soul expression or soul fragments you're integrating, is the fact that you're returning to the profoundness of who you are. And then we have collectively in the now the ability to shift that paradigm again, and that twist on 180-degree shift on twisting on a dime, shifting on a dime. We have this ability right here, right now. And the next 2 years are phenomenal golden opportunity to do so. And so this is why we're going to step up more. My team and I are going to come back a little bit. We've been a little bit in background and we're coming back to the front burner, so to speak, with a new wave. And many of us are stepping us. And I do say many of us, because thank the maker, it's many of us on the planet, whether we're coming from different star systems. And yes, you too, Jack.
Me too, huh? That's
yes.
good to know. No, I feel it. I definitely feel it. No, that's a beautiful message, Viviane, really is. And, you know, it's something that, you know, when people talk to you and they get to know you and they realize that there's a lightness in it, and it's really a message of purpose and love. And though I look at it as the whole concept of returning to who we really are and what we're meant to be is huge. It's a big, I think a lot of people feel something's off, something's wrong. And people, I say people that aren't as connected as the two of you are, will be like, something just feels off. They feel disconnected. They feel disconnected from everything. Right. And there's this negativity, right. And whatever that might be, whether it's with politics or the environment and all this stuff. And I think we have to open up to that. I think we have to open up to the fact that people like you guys are messengers. You're ambassadors. And it's important that we listen, right? Because that's the only way we're going to get to that point where we are supposed to be. But it's good to know we have races of these incredible beings like the Arcturians and the Orions and the Pleiadians, who are here, are benevolent and are watching us and looking over us, and hope, you know, have our best, have good intent.
Yeah, and they can, more about this in an upcoming video, but they can give us protection and encircle us. They're master teachers they travel to other planets for learning. They travel interdimensionally. They can come in and out of the physicality at will. So the Galactic Federation offers you their protection. Oh wait, but that's the music, guys. So we're wrapping it up today. We interviewed Viviane Chauvet, Infinite Healing from the Stars. Anything else you want to add? Did I forget anything, guys?
Yeah, Viviane, anything you're up to right now? Any projects, things you want to mention?
Well, I'm excited about the third documentary. You know, I was a hybrid consultant on the second, which was amazing, working with everyone. And then the upcoming documentary, I'll be a guest speaker at the UFO Con in San Francisco in February to the 20th to the 24th. And then we'll be in Las Vegas for the 5D Quantum Consciousness event, where we'll be also a speaker there and offering workshop and, you know, consultations for people. So there's a lot more coming. There's a lot more coming. So just stay open and say yes.
Good.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much for being here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll
Thanks,
see you next
Viviane.
time.
All right.